Hi everyone, I'm Matt and welcome back to Toylytics, where we take a look at the analytical side of toy collecting. In this video we're going to go through an overview of the secondary market for all Mythic Legions action figures as of the end of the second quarter in 2024. Before we do so though, just wanted to give you a little bit of a background on the way that this data is collected and what it includes for those of you who might be new to the channel. So this data includes all eBay sales from June 28th, 2023 to the present, and specifically here we're looking through June 30th of 2024, so a year and a few days. Only complete and single figure sales are included, so if there are bundles of figures, even two of the same figure, I didn't include those in the data collection process because it's hard to tell exactly what the individual value of a single figure would be, even if it's in a batch of two or three of the same figures. Would somebody be willing to spend, if they're willing to spend $100 for two, does that mean they're willing to spend only $50 for one, or might it be really $55 or something like that, right? So that's why I didn't want to ever include bundles in here, because it's just too hard to determine the individual single figure value. And then also no incomplete figures. So any figure that's missing a part or missing a weapon that I could tell from the eBay listing, I haven't included that either, because again, there's just so much variability there about what is actually included and what isn't included and how that might affect the price. So it's all complete figures as well as I could collect, at least. Okay, no individual parts, of course, and as I said, no lots. The faction wave info comes from the Source Horseman website, and both new and loose slash repacked figures are included in the data. Okay. Additional data characteristics: sales for figures released in All Stars or Reinforcement Waves are not distinct from sales of original releases, unless it's a version 2 of them, of course, like a Baron Volgar 1 versus a Baron Volgar 2. Obviously that's a different figure, so those are distinct. But Baron Volgar, who was originally released, I think, in the Covenant of Shadows wave, compared to Baron Volgar in All Stars 3, you can't really tell. A lot of sellers don't know which figure they have, so it's really hard to specify. So it's just all of those original Baron Volgar figures. Same thing with Malleus here, as I said. And then sales for figures released in convention-exclusive packaging are distinct from the sales of the main releases when it includes like an extra head like Vorgus 2 or the Gorgo and Attila 2-pack, something like that. Okay. So, for example, sales of the Unknown One in Legions Con packaging are separate from sales of the main release of that figure. Okay, so that's it for the background. Let's get into the data itself and take a look overall. All my subsequent videos that I'm going to make are going to be digging into each individual wave. This is just really an overview of the entire market as a whole as of the end of the second quarter. So looking at the sales here, I took out all of the sort of figures that aren't part of a faction, that are NA or none, or the Cabal, right? So the Walter figure and that sort of thing. So these are the main factions here. It's the 10 normal ones that I think most Legions fans would consider, plus the Legions of Light, which is the Valiant Knight. That's the only figure that's in that particular faction. So looking overall here, you can see that we're right at 9,000 sales or so over the course of this year and a few days. And if we add in everything like the weapons packs and hands packs and things that aren't in a faction, you can see that we have over 10,000 figures. Okay, which is really significant. I didn't know it was going to be that many when I started this. I didn't know that there were going to be that many sales on eBay. And again, this is just eBay, and it's just individual figures. All right, so this is an underestimate of how many figures are actually being sold over this particular year, because we didn't include, of course, sales on the Cabal, sales friend to friend, sales at shows and things like that. But then you don't have in here sales of a figure that may be missing a sword or missing a dagger, missing a shield, something like that. You also don't have figures that were sold in bundles, right? So lots of 2 or 3 or 4, and they're, if you peruse the eBay listings yourself, you'll definitely see that there's a significant number of those too. So, but pretty good data set here as far as how many data points we have, right? So let's go back to where we were though, just to look at the main factions. You can see here what stands out is that about a quarter of the figures sold overall are from the Legion of Arethyr. Not surprising in some respects, because Arethyr has the most characters and the most figures released, but still it dwarfs the next. It's almost 50%, or it's almost 100% bigger than the next biggest faction, which is Zylona's Flock. Right. One other thing that's kind of interesting is the convocation of Basilia, even after the release of the Poxus Wave, which added some figures to that line, that particular faction. Only 390 sales over the entire year, compared with the Valiant Knight himself, right? The Legions of Light is just the Valiant Knight, and there's 178 of those sold. Right? So it's kind of surprising that, well, first of all, it points to the fact that the Valiant Knight is a very popular figure, but also it's just kind of interesting to see that there aren't a whole lot of Basilia figures sold. A lot of them were older figures, and a lot of the ones sold more recently. As you can see in 2023, barely anything sold, right? So 62 the entire second half of the year, much more than that after the Poxus Wave was released, and that's typically the ones that were selling in the first part of 2024. So in general, overall, you can kind of get a sense of how much each particular faction is selling. Here is that same data broken down by month. So you can see, not surprising, that Arethyr is at the top here, selling, just around about 180 to 200 figures or so per month in that faction, pretty consistently. Here you can see Poxus really come up in February, once the Poxus Wave was released, but before that, not selling very much at all. And you can see what's this pink one here? This is Zylona's Flock, right? So it seems to be increasing the number of units sold there over time, right? So back in 2023, selling around about 90 to 100. Now in 2024, selling mostly around about 120, maybe to 130 on average. But a lot of sales also in May of 2024. Saw a lot of spikes there for most of the factions, but most of them are selling under 100 units per month across the entire faction. Something else that's interesting to look at is the sales by day. All right, so this is just all figures in my data set that are sold each day, and the count of them, and how that actually changes over time. It's interesting to see that there were some days where we have significant spikes, like September 20th, 2023 had 98, which was broken by June 20th, 2024, something about the 20th day of the month, 103 units sold. So that's the highest day so far within the past year. What's also kind of interesting, if we want to add a trend line to this, let me drag a trend line over here, just a simple linear trend line. You can see that we have an increasing linear trend. And if we look at the equation here, first of all, people that know statistics and regression in particular would know that this isn't a great model necessarily, but at least it is statistically significant, because that p-value is less than 5%. But looking at the coefficient here for the day of the sale date, it's 0.0035383. So that means for every day that we go forward, the amount sold per day on average increases by 0.033583. That doesn't sound like a lot, and it really isn't a lot, of course, but if you multiply that by 30 or 31 days in a month, you get basically about one figure per month that average amount selling per day increases, if that makes any sense. So looking at this line over here at the beginning of July 1st, 2023, you can see that we're just above 20, right? So maybe around 21, 22 selling per day. That's what that dotted line shows. Once we get over here to June 30th, 2024, you can see that we're now above 30, right? So over the course of that year, we increased the number of figures that are selling per day on average by about 10 units per day, right? So that'll be interesting to see if that continues. I think this shows that, it's not hard and fast data, but it shows in general that the line is still popular, is growing in popularity. Some of this, of course, is due to the fact that more and more figures are going to be released. So when more figures are released, we're going to see more units sold, right? It just kind of makes sense, because there's more opportunity for them to sell might as well expect to see more figures being sold. But in general, right, it would be a bad sign for the market and for the overall demand for these figures if we know the Horsemen are releasing more and more figures, on a every 2 month or so basis. If that average were to come down, if we start going back down to 25 per day, 20 per day, 19, 18, 15 per day, that would be kind of a negative sign. That would be a sign that maybe this whole entire Mythic Legions line is losing a little bit of steam. But right now, we're still seeing that positive increase over time. And then finally, for this video, I've got every individual figure here broken out by faction and then ranked by their average selling price in the faction, from highest average selling price to lowest average selling price. So the Army of Leodicius, not surprising that Otho is the highest average price, but not a very high price for those of you that may have been following Otho in some time. Notice that, again, this is only from Q2 2024, so this doesn't look at any of the prior data. We'll look at that in the individual wave videos, but for right now, we're just looking at Q2, the most recent prices. What are, because they're basically the most relevant prices. What are these selling for in the most recent 3-month period? We've got Otho, $355. I think that was only one sale, maybe two, but that's a pretty good price comparatively for what Otho typically goes for. Deltagar increasing pretty significantly. The Night Builder female, right? We saw this kind of go up after the Ashes of Agbendor reveal because, yes, we are getting some of those parts, but we don't have the complete buck necessarily for the female figure, I believe, in that new Night Builder release in the upcoming Ashes of Agbendor wave. So I think there's been a little bit of a run on the Night Builder female. Balius, still holding pretty good price. Faustia, Magnus, these are pretty common that we would expect. The Legion builders down at the bottom here. Vetus is almost to the point where he's back at his retail price after that All-Stars release. But, pretty significant prices here for Army of Leodicius, other than the recent Gold Knight Legion builder and the All-Stars 4 Vetus there, as well as some other Legion builders too. One other thing to note here is the first release of Attila definitely come down in price after the release of the War of the Aetherblade Attila version 2. Okay. All right, looking at Circle of Poxus here, Malachi Cinderhorn still holding strong as the highest valued figure, or the highest selling figure as far as price is concerned, beating out the Poxus and Phlogus 2-pack, which is kind of surprising. We would kind of expect these 2-packs historically to be selling for a higher price. I think the secret was out on those. I think these were ordered in much larger quantities than the Erethyr one and the Alithia one were. We didn't even know at that point that we were necessarily getting 2-packs. A lot of us that were ordering, we thought we were just saving, $10 off of the price of buying them individually. At least that was me when I ordered my Alithia ones for the first time. But I think once, the Erethyr wave was revealed, we knew that we were getting these actual 2-packs, and this was ordered in much more significant quantities here. So not really selling too much higher, especially after fees and everything, than the original price of the 2-pack would have been. Zarya, recently released or re-released, I should say, in the Mysteries of Mythos mystery boxes. So interesting to see her price there. I'll have another video kind of teasing out the Mysteries of Mythos effect on all of those re-released figures. So keep an eye out for that. But that's definitely coming. And as a spoiler, there definitely was a significant effect. It's interesting to see all that. Melina still pretty high, right? Especially with respect to some of the other Masters tributes. She has a pretty high price there. Interesting to see Zazar and Torion going for prices on average in the low 70s, between $70 and $75. This was All-Stars 3, so a lot of the older inventory has dried up of those, and the price is starting to increase on those. But everybody else is selling basically for a little bit less than their retail price in most cases. Necronominus here. We've got the gold skeleton selling for a high price again. maybe not as high as he once was, not sure, but still pretty high, 364. Morgulith, right, just kind of exploding through the roof because you can't really get her any other way. So 170 on average, pretty high there. Brother Mandibulus, again, another re-release that came down in price significantly. And then a lot of these other skeletons going for right around retail. Clavians come down significantly after that All-Star 6 was announced. So he's going for 60. Not a lot of sales on him at all, though. Looking at Basilia, as we said, not a lot of sales overall compared to some of the other factions, but Jordan Runeshaper, Ravenna, Hera Serpent Spire, all going for more than $200 on average. Aza, not a whole lot of data here for the original Aza after the announcement of the Aza 2 in the upcoming Ashes of Agbendorf wave. Actually, I don't think any were, or maybe one loose one was sold in June after that. So not a lot of data. It'll be interesting to see how that impacts her price. I would expect her to start coming down a little bit off that 160. And Balam, still pretty high. 156.50, over $150 on average for Balam. Everything else, again, relatively new from the Poxus wave. Looking at Noble Bear, shout out to Rich Jones, his favorite faction. Thord Ironjaw, not surprisingly. Rhaegor, Adamon, Halmir, Golden Tooth, all over 200. Those other ones were over 300. Halmir's a 231. Atlas the Conqueror, kind of interesting, bucking the trend a little bit. He's come down a little bit in price, but still on average 188.90 after the announcement of the Atlas 2 coming in the Rising Suns wave. So hasn't really affected him as much as some of the other figures overall. Some of these other in the Noble Bear, Torgon, Finn, Ragna, still selling for over 130 on average. Cassia still commands a pretty good price there. The Barbarian Warrior, that's the female Barbarian, 116. Kador, another Mysteries and Mythos re-release, come down significantly. Freya holding about $100. Calavius, a little bit less than 100 as well. And a lot of these others are, again, selling for around retail. Alithia's Brood, again, here, look at the difference in that 2-pack, right? Alithia's 2-pack, 250 compared with the Poxus of around 140. Lucretia, original Ilithia, still showing a very high price. We saw that increase once Thrace was released and people saw the pop and swap possibilities there. The original Vorgus still holding, you know, a pretty good price there, not the 200 plus he was in the past, but still holding at 130 compared to the newer figure. Here's the Legions Con one. That's what LC means. Legions Con at 109.50. The original, or the standard release, I should say, of Vorgus Vermilius 2 going for 64.50. So you can see that Legions Con, people like that translucent head there, I guess, still commanding a pretty significant premium over the standard release. Some of these others, though, again, getting harder and harder to find, and their prices are going up as would be expected. Here's that Baron Voligar from Covenant of Shadows and All Stars 3, 77.50. Valak going for close to 70, and then Baron Voligar 2 even above 60 here with 63.50. Okay. Legion of Erethyr, so many figures. Unken on the top, not surprisingly, but again, a little bit surprising that the prices come down, right? Back in January, he sold for over $1,500, a brand new one, right? I have the data. Even Nerdzoic, Big Nerdy, he pointed it out in one of his videos too, right? It's a verified sale on eBay, but now I'm going for, on average, around 450. You know, some sold less than 400, some sold right around 500, averages out to about 450. You can see the Erethyr 2-pack, 258. Urzok and Urku still going pretty high. The Stone Troll and the Forest Troll, these are the re-releases with the extra heads, and they're going for 190 plus. Aethon still going really high, 172 for an individually boxed Aethon. King Noglin, pretty high as well, over 160. Furious 4 Legions Con, 142. Those are more, I think, than the figures sell for individually, but I'm not sure. Bromden, 140, still pretty high. Boggoblin, Queen Urxa, Bothar hasn't come down that much, right? Again, he's come down a little. Again, he was over 200 before, but again, hasn't been totally destroyed as far as price is concerned. Still averaging out at 130, even though he's coming in All-Star 6. Juno the Crusher, 127.50, holding tight. Erethyr, 122, it's up a little bit. Warrior, 117. All right, looking at some of these other ones here, we've got Nubnik, 111, Snag, 105. He was a re-release. Let's see here. Gonks, again, another re-release, came down a little bit in price. Thwick, holding above 90 as well. Then looking at some of these others, you can see that some of the ones from the Aether wave, like the like Warthog, Hellfire Goblin, they're going for 75 or so for those. Even the Black Knight going for above $70, so a reinforcement going for above 70. Gorthok's come down pretty significantly, although again, not a lot sold. So on average, selling for 72, I would say that's probably no more than about 3 or 4 units there. So Laura Bashadi and Pitorion again selling for together about 124, and that's again less than their combined Special Legions Con release price. Cavern Dwarf and Cavern Dwarf 2 selling close to each other, and Gorgo 2, or no, this is Gorgo 1, I'm sorry, selling for only $46. His price went down pretty significantly. Gorgo 2 individually, people selling the loose figure going for 61 as well. Okay, Valiant Knight holding at about 88, close to $90 for him. Again, just wait. If you're interested in the Valiant Knight, those bodies are coming, right? As we've heard in the Necronominus wave and the All-Star 6 wave. So probably doesn't make sense to buy that figure for $90 now, but certainly some people are. Order of Aetheron, we've got Sir Valgard, Sir Galaron selling for Sir Valgard 444, again pretty high, came down a little bit but still pretty high. Sir Galaron selling for 272, or Sir Graileron as some say. The Knight, this is the one that's in the related to the new Knight Builder 3 that's coming in the Ashes of Agbendor line. So 247.50, that's probably going to come down. It has come down in June. Some of these were selling for about 120 to 150. This is the original Sir Gideon Heavensbrand, still selling for 186. Some have sold for around $100, but some still, like the packaged versions, are still selling pretty high. Silver Knight, really high there, 152. Gwendolyn Heavensbrand and Delphina still selling for above 130. Sir Godfrey, he came down pretty significantly. Gadriel holding it at above 110. Got the Gold Knight, that's the original Gold Knight, selling for 81, and then the Gold Knight 2 was in another faction. He's selling for around like 55 or so. Sir Ignatius, again, this is another one that came down significantly, but not many sales, right, for him at all. But he's coming again in the All-Star 6. Almost there, almost done with this. Sons of the Red Star, we've got Keltis at 415. Pixis 216, and then Scapular still selling pretty high, similar to Atlas the Conqueror. Hasn't been hit too much as far as the version 2 coming out, but we'll see if that continues as the release gets closer and closer. Grisha is still a favorite of many people, selling for 130 plus. Lord Vateris has risen in price. He's now going for close to 110. Sir Gerard, we got the 2 versions here, Legions Con and the regular release, selling above 80, both of them. And then moving on to Xylona's Flock. We've got Orange Steelhide selling for over 300. Xylona herself still selling over 200. Asterion, Thistlethorn has really risen in price significantly, and Thalen, right? So these still continue to be 150 plus for both of those. Faunus took a hit, but still not hit too much by the Mysteries of Mythos re-release. This is the original Artemis Silvercord selling for 116. The deluxe version. Myria Golden Branch, one you don't hear about a lot, but still selling pretty high, above 110. Not a lot of sales, though, for her. You can see some of these here. Silver Dwarf selling for around 100. You could see some of the builders and those sorts of things. And then some figures from the Alithia wave starting to become a little bit harder to find, like Artemis 2 selling for 78 on average. Lord Bardrick selling above 50, or sorry, above 70. And then Krotos even selling for above his retail price as well, selling for 57.60, and the rest of these are pretty much around their retail price or a little bit below. So looking at the overall state of Mythic Legions. Definitely have seen some ups as far as, some rarer figures still keep going up and up and up in price. Others, though, still coming back down. So we'll dig into more of that into each wave in particular in the other videos. So please keep an eye out for those as I record them. I think I'm going to do Alithia waves first and then Aerithir second. As far as getting some popular figures out there that are still, not really available at retail anymore, and those are kind of the more interesting ones to take a look at as far as how the secondary market prices have been fluctuating. So stay tuned for those. Like, subscribe, as everyone always says, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.